Hello! Telvanni here, and this is mostly just an announcement video letting you guys know that I've updated the PoE for the Lightning Conduit Elementalist League Start build I've been cooking up. Many of you have been asking for it, so I've gone ahead and added in leveling trees and a written guide for the early acts. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that Archmage is being completely reworked in 3.24, and while the numbers for this build look good on paper, it is impossible to test it properly. That being said, if it turns out Archmage isn't really working, the damage isn't there, the sustain is too difficult, whatever the case may be, Lightning Conduit by itself is a tried and tested League Start build. I played it myself back in Lake of Calandra. It was a very strong early game. You were blasting through maps, getting your Void Stones, and all around it was a great League starter. For complete transparency, however, I will say the damage does begin to fall off when you start looking to kill things like Uber bosses. But I think you will find that that is true of most builds. Not a whole lot of League starters are going to be capable of downing things like Uber Elder within the first few days on a very low investment. Another thing I would like to mention is that Zizaran has a great guide from last patch, the Affliction League. So if it does turn out that Archmage Lightning Conduit is a flop, it shouldn't be too difficult to transition to something like that instead of a mana stacking version like we have here. Alright, so with all of those disclaimers and fine print out of the way, let's very quickly take a look at some of the changes to the PoE. As the title of this video might have cued you in on, the main changes here are that I've added some leveling trees. I've personally, just today, rerun through the first 4 acts of the campaign, and I've tried my best to write up a very detailed written guide on what to do for each of those acts. So you'll know exactly what socket colors to look out for, where and when to pick up certain gems, and at what point you can start swapping over to using Lightning Conduit. Long story short, you'll need to wait until you get your first elemental ascendancy, Shaper of Storms, but there is a more detailed description of how to make that transition in the written guide itself, and I would recommend you take a look at it. Before your first ascendancy, however, you will be leveling with the standard Rolling Magma and Holy Flame totem setup. It gets the job done, it's easy, and it's straightforward. Next, you'll see that I've added in some leveling trees, so you'll have a good idea of how to path during the campaign and into early maps. I've spent most of the focus on the first 4 acts, as those are generally the most difficult for players to get through before they get access to their main skill, so those should be very, very solid for you. I'd also like to note that most likely you'll want to wait until you've finished the campaign and have a little bit of mana gear before trying to make the swap over to an Archmage mana stacking version of the build. In the leveling trees, I am assuming you are going to wait to transition to Archmage until a little bit later in the game. You are welcome to attempt using an Archmage setup as early as Act 3 or 4, but it'll probably be difficult for most players to pull this off, as you really need mana on your gear for both offenses and defenses to go that route. Wrapping up, I'm still torn on if I want to League Start with this, or if I want to League Start with maybe a Hierophant using something like Ice Nova or Ball Lightning. But I really wanted to get this out for those of you who aren't as indecisive as I am. Anyway, thank you for watching, good luck with your League, and I'll see you in the next one.